Okay, let's get to it then. We've just had a commercial run, probably with Elliott talking about steaming meat.
Oh God, that
You
ad
guys,
read is so bad. After I
I
listened to your guys's, I was like, Jesus, mine is so bad.
Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I am Jordan Deller Coltman. I am joined by Elliott Tanti and my brother Braydon Deller Coltman. Welcome back, Elliott. It's been a couple weeks off for you. How you doing?
Yeah, I was actually missing you guys a lot. It's really nice to be back. It's nice to be chatting.
How are you, Braydon?
doing great. Happy to have Elliott back. Ready to talk more sports. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it right away. We had some great guests the last couple weeks. It is good to have the original three here, and we will dig into some good topics. All right, here's topic one. Okay, so from the very beginning of this show, we've never shied away from controversy. We've never shied away from difficult topics, difficult conversations. That's always been something right from the beginning when Elliott first pitched the idea of doing this show. He wanted to have a conversation about sports that wasn't just about what was on the field or on the ice or on the court, but about the bigger issues surrounding it. We've talked about Colin Kaepernick in the past. We've talked about names and racism. We've talked about sexism. We've talked about diversity in sports. We've tried to do our best throughout the times that we've had episodes to address issues like that. And certainly as they become topical or they come up, we've always tried to have an elevated conversation about that. This week, obviously, we find ourselves in another situation concerning the NHL and another difficult situation for an organization. The Vancouver Canucks have placed Jake Virtanen on leave after concerning allegations, those are their words, about sexual misconduct. Again, their words. There was an interview aired recently here on a local news station with a woman who has accused Jake Virtanen of rape. We don't need to beat around the bush. That's exactly what she's accused him of. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because that's not what I want to talk about. The specifics of that are, again, they're being dealt with, and I'm sure you can find the specifics in many different places. That is also part of what I want to talk about. However, it's a 2017 incident, so this is recent past, but Jake Virtanen not currently playing or practicing or working for the Canucks. He's on leave. So that's where the story begins. What I want to dig into today with you guys and have a conversation about is the bigger problem that we continue to find ourselves in every time one of these situations happen. Domestic abuse or sexual misconduct, sexual assault happens more frequently in sports than a lot of people want to admit. It's unfortunate. It's what it is. We have to start to think about the bigger problems in our own society that will be the solutions to why that exists. And that is what I want to talk about. The NHL does not have a domestic violence policy. It is not in the CBA. There is no public policy that you can find on their website or anything else. There is no go-to response for the NHL or their teams when an issue like this arises. For me, that's unacceptable. The second piece of it is how it is dealt with in the media and more specifically on social media. I think we find ourselves in these situations and very quickly they escalate to a conversation about due process or both sides of a story or turning it around and suggesting that, well, maybe it's just somebody being framed or any of these things. But the truth is 2 out of every 3 women in Canada has an experience of either sexual harassment or sexual assault. Okay. That means if there are 3 women in your life, 2 of them can tell you a story like this. That number is ridiculously high. Every single day, all across the world, women are trying not to be raped. Okay? That is just a fact. Men are the first part of this problem, and they are the last part of this problem. We need, as men, to have these conversations more frequently than we are and more openly than we are. That's where I want to be. I was frustrated by how the media responded to this, how they dug into trying to get to the bottom of the details. But the bigger piece is, why does the NHL not have a policy? And why do we keep finding ourselves in this situation? That's where I want to dig into. So I know it's kind of broad and open. I'm frustrated. You can probably sense that. I'm angry. The story made me very angry. And more to the point, the response that I saw on Twitter from other people who cover hockey, cover sports, let me be more clear. Sorry. Men who cover hockey and cover sports made me even more angry. I guess I'll throw it to you, Elliott. What was your response to this situation and to some of the things I brought up here?
Well, let me start by just making really clear, how important I think it is, Jordan, for you to put this forward and prioritize this topic this week. You brought this to us, this group, and we were talking about this. There was not a question. So thank you for that. And thank you for your leadership on that. And obviously in your description, your passion on this issue too. So just to know for stepping up. So I want to acknowledge that and that piece for you. This is an awful thing to say, but when this all occurred, all I could think about was, would this have been Vancouver's reaction? Was this how the team would have behaved? This is what would have happened if the Canucks were a better team this year, if they were in a playoff fight, if they were fighting for home ice advantage. And I think that's obviously an awful thing to say. And I think it speaks to the lack of trust that I have in the institution of the NHL and hockey in general to deal with these really sensitive and difficult things. And that me as a fan who's pretty invested in this and has been around for long enough, knowing, as you identified, Jordan, that there is no policy on these types of really important and frankly sensitive issues. The NHL is anything but consistent in these issues. And so that to me is really problematic. And maybe that's where I'll end, because that's serious enough of an allegation to make in a way to describe this. But we have a serious problem here with the way that people are responding to this situation, have responded to situations in the past, have responded to other cultural issues in the NHL. And those people continue to have platforms, continue to be elevated, continue to be paid, frankly, to have these very wish-washy opinions. And it speaks to a larger culture. That's my take.
Braydon, thoughts?
Yeah, my initial reaction, I think, first and foremost, was disappointment that this is another incident that we're seeing this kind of thing take place. And when, the thing that really boils in me is that these aren't just, professional athletes here. These are members of communities. These players do work in these communities, and they're role models. They're people that a lot of young people look up to. So, to see something like this occur again, it's really disappointing. I do want to clear one thing up. You mentioned about the code of conduct. There is none in the CBA. You said they have a proposed code of conduct. I'll read it
Proposed.
to you. A proposed, yes. Yeah. A zero tolerance policy for failure to notify the NHL of any incident involving clearly inappropriate, unlawful, or demonstrably abusive behavior, and the creation of mandatory annual counseling, education, and training programs for coaches and management. So, what that looks like in terms of detail, I think is a very important step moving forward for that organization. I think what my reaction to that, though, is, you look at what is happening in the NFL with Deshaun Watson. There's 20 civil lawsuits against him brought forward from women who have, again, alleged him of rape, sexual misconduct. And that policy that is in place for the NFL, which they have, has not been followed through in any capacity to this point. So you see that there's a proposed code of conduct for the NHL. I think that's an important, necessary step. But when you look to the left at another organization and how that's kicking in, I think it's really troubling.
Yeah, the NFL's issues surrounding this are well documented. There are at least a dozen players currently on contract at NFL teams who have either allegations or actual convictions concerning these issues that have been moved through whatever the NFL's process is and been deemed either, I don't even know what the term is, rehabilitated. Some bullshit like that allows them to still have the jobs they have. In any other industry, that would not be the case, but we're dealing with millions and millions of dollars. And so somehow them as assets becomes more valuable. Antonio Brown literally has a job and he's got however many accusations against him as well. It's infuriating. I mean, that's a rabbit hole. The NFL is a completely different rabbit hole, and why the NFL hates women when, again, they're desperate to grow as an organization with women viewers blows my mind, but that's a sidebar. The piece for me when we deal with this specifically, again, with the social media part of it is, and the media in general part of it is, I think what's frustrating is that, there is this, I mean, much like the conversations we've had concerning race, and much like the conversation we've had about gender equity in sport. Last week we spent an entire segment talking about the cancellation of the Women's World Championship. And then, we got to a place where we were talking about, well, maybe the NHL needs to step up. It's like, how can you possibly expect the NHL to be supporting women's sports when, again, we're dealing with these conversations? They don't even have a policy to deal with women's human rights. I mean, this is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? The social media part of it and the toxic masculinity that just exists in our sports culture at large is something that no one seems to have found the right way to address from an organizational perspective. And sorry, like I said a moment ago, when we talk about the race part of it, we're dealing with systemic racism in our society in a new way. We're starting to think about and draw awareness to white privilege and to societal privilege and these situations. But we are still somehow neglecting 50% of our population. The fact that we haven't dealt with sexual violence and sexual harassment and sexual prejudice the same way is ridiculous to me. Misogyny is systemic in our society, and until we start to recognize male privilege, and until we start to recognize how, again, these organizations that are built almost exclusively of men, and in the NHL almost exclusively of white men, continue to bury their heads in the sand and only address these issues when they become unavoidable, like we have here today. And that's frustrating to me.
Can I say, Jordan, this is not to sway anything that you've said or anything that's been said around this thing. And I think my point on this, I've been really clear about this. I will say for Virtanen to be removed and for it to be outed is a step in the right direction.
I agree.
And is absolutely
I do agree
necessary and is not something that you would have expected 2 years ago. So I think there is some growth on these issues. But as you said,
that's true.
Just because we're, just like the only saving grace for the NHL in this and as a holistic thing is that no other league has really figured this out, which is not appropriate either. Right.
That's true. And I will agree with that. I think, the Canucks have done the right thing, just as any employer should. When you have an accusation against an employee, the best course of action would be to have them removed from the current situation until an investigation occurs. And again, I think it is fair to say, all members involved have the right to due process. We believe in a justice system in this country where you are innocent until proven guilty. We have seen often that in these situations, the rhetoric gets so hot so quickly, though, that we lose sight of that on both parts of it, right? I mean, that was what I was most disgusted by online, is how quickly a lot of the conversation turned to, well, she's probably lying. She's probably doing all these things. We turn to the victim and we blame the victim instead of giving both the victim and the accused due process. That is where the problem exists. But you can't have one and the other. He can't give him his day in court, but then attack her. That doesn't work. That's not how the system or how a healthy society should function. So I agree. You're right, Elliott. I think the Vancouver Canucks have done the only appropriate thing. It is frustrating that there isn't a league-wide policy for them to have followed, that they gratefully have done the right thing. We will see how that plays out. But I think, again, it leads to a bigger conversation that needs to continue and will obviously continue long past to the 5 minutes that we've already probably doubled now. Any last thoughts there, guys?
Just how important that allyship is.
Yeah, and the commitment, I think, from the three of us to continue to talk about these issues.
Absolutely. And I encourage everyone at home to do the same. Bring these up. Don't avoid them. Have the conversations. And don't just have the conversations with the women in your lives, but more importantly, have the conversations with the other men in your lives, because we can't continue to turn to women and expect them to tell us how to fix this problem. They have been trying for years and years and years to tell us how to fix this problem, right? One last thought, that it becomes part of this bigger rhetoric where people turn it into like a cancel culture thing. And it isn't about canceling anybody. It isn't about cancel culture. That's just a talking point that's being weaponized to try to scare people. This isn't about that. This is about protecting people and about fighting for everyone's equal rights, just as we have with every other type of injustice that we continue to try to address in sports and in society at whole. I think we should leave it there. Thank you. And that's topic 1. Hey, topic 2 this week is brought to us by Roma Pizza and Donair. Look, we all know that the best thing about Edmonton is the many Donair options. And I know if you're like me, it can be overwhelming and stressful trying to hunt down the best. Well, my friends, we have found it, and it's time you did too. Roma Pizza and Donair in Westbrook Aspen Gardens is Edmonton's best kept secret. There's nothing quite like piping hot meat getting shaved and served with a generous ratio of sweet sauce. And look, I know someone out there is saying, yeah, no, that's not really my thing. Well, hold your horses, because there is more. Roma Pizza and Donair not only serves Edmonton's best donair, but they also offer Roma's pizzas, dinner platters, chicken wings, chicken fingers, chicken nuggets, chicken tawuk, salads, subs, burgers, baklava, coconut cake, and with summer right around the snow-covered corner, they also have summer specials, deep fried pickles and deep fried Oreos. But hey, don't take my word for it. Sometimes tasting is believing. To order, call them at 780-944-9696. That's 780-944-9696. They're open every day except Sunday from 11 to 11 and open till midnight Friday and Saturday. You can also follow them on Instagram at Roma Pizza Donair. Okay, topic 2. We're going to go with something a little more fun, a little bit more upbeat, and very on brand for the three of us. Every time we're sort of, we sort of dig in on something a little bit more difficult like that, we always resort back to just saying, can we just talk about the Oilers after? So we're going to talk about the Oilers, because guess what? The Oilers have had a bit of a positive, very positive season so far. It started off a little bit slow, but you know what? I'm starting to feel like that might just be kind of what the Oilers are. Even with Connor and Leon, they seem to have had these seasons now where in the last couple of months, they find that extra gear. They sort of hit their stride. I remember a couple years ago, the first Hart season for McDavid, when they got into the playoffs for the first time, it was like the last couple games you just couldn't stop him. He just all of a sudden was electric. And then even last year before the shutdown, I mean, Draisaitl was on an unbelievable pace. You know, he had that game against Nashville. I think he had 4 or 5 points, and it was like, this guy's just next level. And they're starting to look like that again, which is great. It's what you want going into the playoffs, obviously. The conversation now isn't so much won't they make the playoffs? It's who do they want to face in the playoffs? And are they playing to try to catch to Toronto so they can play the Montreal Canadiens, or are they happy to sit in second and take on those Jets? So what we're going to do is something a little different. We're each going to just bring one Oilers take and then sort of talk about it. Does anyone want to go first? Is anyone chomping at the bit for it? Yeah. Champing at the bit? I don't know how that phrase goes. Elliott?
I'm champing at the bit. I'm champing at the bit to go. I'm champing at the bit because I'm deeply passionate about Darnell Nurse for the Norris. I think Darnell Nurse, and I'm going to continue this take. I had him listed as the second best Oiler when we did our top 5 Oiler segment a couple months back. I think he continues to be the second best Oiler on the team after Connor McDavid. He's playing incredibly well with 15 goals, 16 assists. Not the point leader on defenseman, obviously, because Tyson Berry has that, but leader on time on ice, time on the power play, time on penalty kill, time on 5-on-5, time on ice 5-on-5. All of these things just indicative of someone who's a legit number 1 defenseman and playing like one of the most elite, one of those 7 or 8 or 9 guys that's the number 1, that's a true number 1 this year. Something we haven't had in a really, 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 really long time. I would say since Chris Pronger. Everyone knock on wood, we don't want that hex to come back. But I'm really passionate about the role of Darnell Nurse and what he's done for the team this year and where he's playing. And I think he should be in the Norris conversation. That, of course, coming from a guy who's not watched any other division except for the North this year. Hot take alert.
I wish I had your enthusiasm, Elliott. I really do.
Man, Darnell's having a great season.
Yeah, but he is not Cale Makar and he is not Fox. It's just ain't, it
Yeah,
ain't gonna happen.
he's not.
The
No,
Norris
but
ain't gonna
neither of those
happen.
guys are Norris in the Norris Trophy conversation right now. Cale Makar had like a huge stretch. He was injured, and he hasn't even been he's a great defenseman. Darnell Nurse is so much better than he is right now. That's my take on Darnell Nurse.
Darnell Nurse is not going to get.
Hedman.
Yeah, he's not beating Hedman and he's not beating Fox. And I don't think he's better than Cale Makar. I don't even think he's played better than. Well, you know what? I'll give you this. From the time Elliott made that pick, took that take, I watched a lot closer. Darnell Nurse is certainly the best Oiler defenseman we have had since Chris Pronger. I will give him that. This season. I want to make that very clear.
Well,
just the season so far. He's got to now be able to string this to next year in a couple of years before we start having the real conversation about what his legacy is going to be with this team. But he has the potential to be a bona fide number one guy league wide that you definitely have in the Norris conversation. It just ain't going to happen this year.
Quick question. Yes or no to both of you? He makes $5.6 million this year in the cap world. Is that a deal for the Oilers this year?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The Oilers actually, for as much of a cap stressed team as the Oilers are, it's not. They still have surprisingly healthy contracts on some of the most dangerous pieces of their lineup. Leon Draisaitl might be the most underpaid NHL player when you look at what he brings. Contract wise, on any other team, he's their biggest contract. He's probably only a couple chips below where McDavid is if he's playing for the Calgary Flames or he's playing for the Vancouver Canucks. He's going to be, he is underpaid for what his production is, considering the fact that he signed that contract before he became a Hart Trophy winner too. So the Oilers are lucky in that sense. They just are overpaying on some clunkers. I mean,
well, this is a good segue for my hot take here. I think that one of the best bargain deals comes with probably one of our best players this year. Mike Smith on a 1 year, $1.5 million deal. Come on, this guy's lights out. He's having career numbers, and I know that it's a shortened season, but his save percentage, like this is the highest it's ever been. He's got 18 wins, and I really did think Koskinen was going to be the guy. Like right out of the gate, he was playing all those games. I thought it was going to go back and forth a lot more than it did, but Mike Smith has been lights out for the Oilers this year.
You know what?
It's saves in that last game.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Calgary's just like,
You're totally right. You're totally right. Koskinen, we are in the position we are in because Koskinen kept us alive in those early games when the team wasn't always playing well. He definitely played well. But it's interesting. You're right. They sort of had this very quick role reversal when Mike Smith came back. He just couldn't keep up with what Mike Smith was offering. And I think the other thing that we haven't had on the Oilers in enough players is the kind of like just fight and emotional energy that he brings. It's the kind of thing we used to say like Hendricks brought or what was his name, Jason Smith brought. It was those kind of guys that were like the grittier guys in your lineup. But when you have the guy who's literally carrying your team as a goaltender and he's also that emotional sort of heartbeat, I mean, that's gotta be huge for that team. They want to play for him in front of him.
And the best thing is, I don't know if you guys remember the end of last season. I know I was screaming at my television and throwing remotes at the television, yelling, "Mike Smith, will you stay in your fucking net?" And it seems like he's figured out how to, pick and choose his decisions. But it's so great to be able to have that extra puck handling at the back end there. It really alleviates a lot of that for the D. Anyway, that's my hot take. Mike Smith, best goalie for the Oilers.
I agree. Mine then I will jump to here. We can finish off with, I guess it's less of a take and it's more of a question because it's the question everybody wants to ask. And I do find it kind of fascinating. I mean, is Connor McDavid going to get to 100 points in this shortened season? And even if he doesn't, like, is the rest of the league giving him the respect or sort of attention that the season he's having deserves? Let me put it in perspective. If we were playing an 82 game season right now, he would be on pace for 140 points. Okay. Nobody has made it over 120 in the last decade. 140 points in a shortened season in a year when you're only playing the same 6 teams, right? These guys know who he is. And the only two teams really, frankly, who have had any success against McDavid consistently have been the Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. They're the only two teams that have found some way to shut him down. Every other team cannot contain him. And even those teams have had moments where he's just gone off. But like Connor
Every
McDavid,
other Canadian team this year.
That's the thing. And I keep having this conversation. That's what I mean. Every team he's played.
Yeah.
But we keep having this conversation about, like, well, could this be his peak? Is this the best we'll see from McDavid? The truth is like, if this is the best we're going to see from McDavid, should we not be expecting to see this for like 3, 4, 5 years? Like, he's going to have more of a plateau than a peak. This guy's insane. Is he going to get to 100 points? That's the question. What do you think, Connor or Elliott? Called you Connor.
Well, I mean, you can call me Connor the podcast here. No, I here's what I would say. Like, he's 13 points away with 7 games to go. That's less than 2 points a game. How ridiculous is it that we're just like, oh yeah, I think he's, there's a good chance he's going to just average 2 points a game. That's how good he is. Like, there's no player that you could just think like, even in their prime, even Crosby, Ovechkin, and like their prime, it was like they were great players. Don't get me wrong, but could you definitively say, oh yeah, I could, 7 games, 2 points a game, that's pretty good. Here's what I'll say: he needs one 4-point game, 1 4 or 5 point game, I think, to make it, because I think there's probably going to be one stinker here. If he gets that multi-point game, that's like that's a 4+ point game, then I think he does get there. And he's got 7 games to do it. But man, it doesn't matter whether it's still an outstanding, remarkable season that is totally, Jordan, I will just say, it's totally unappreciated given just what it would mean in regular time. And man, I'd love to see 82 games of this. Just for the look on people's faces,
Well, and I mean, he is, just to give you some context, he is now currently, for his career, and although yes, his career is still relatively young, he is averaging 1.75 points per game. Okay, Wayne Gretzky averaged 1.92 for his entire career. That's a total. This kid is at 1.79 already. He is just different level. And the other thing, and I know I interrupted you, Braydon. I'll let you get in here in a second. I just had to say this. There was all this conversation this week about the NFL draft, and the thing one of the most overused terms. Larissa and I both agree on this. I hate this. Generational talent. I fucking hate this term because every single year there seems to be a generational talent, which by very definition, therefore means there is not a generational talent. Generation is a generation. How long is a generation? I don't know. 25 years.
Hold on a second. Are you
Matthews can't be generational. There can't be more than one generational. Why
can't there
player.
be multiple?
Because
why not? You're talking about a generation. That's plural.
Correct, and that means that to be the generational talent of your generation, you are the number one guy of your generation. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm not hearing them say this is
defining.
the generational player. I'm hearing them say this is another generational player.
Which
another generational
the entire point of it. Then you're just another superstar. To be generational, to be generational, you have to be top of class for that entire generation. That's
a superstar. And I would argue that there are plenty other players that are not that.
No one in the NHL right now touches Connor McDavid talent-wise.
So let me talk about the generational talent and why I think Connor McDavid will make the 100 mark. The Oilers played the Canucks 5 times in our last 7, 8 games? We've got 7 games left. Mm-hmm. This is a team that is coming off of COVID, coming off of a poor season. He's going to get the points. It's a lock. He's getting it. I think he's getting it.
But 2 games against Montreal. Montreal. That's what I worry about.
Well, they need to make a push. They need to make a push for the playoffs here. They need to get some more momentum under them.
I mean,
and I think they're going to be able to do it. I think he's going to be able to make that.
We got to put it in context. Last year, prior to the lockout, or not lockout, before the shutdown because of COVID, I think they played something like 65 games, almost 70 games. I can't remember the exact number that the Oilers got to. Right. They were about the same distance currently from the finish line. The difference is this year, what are they playing? 52 games, 58 games total?
Yeah, something like that.
He had 97 points last year. Okay? In that many games. This kid
weren't very good last year.
He was.
He was, but he's been on the team for how many years?
I'm just saying.
I know.
Just saying. This year, historically, is it needs to be put in a different class because it's insane. And I also want to say, you look at those points, like, again, we have the two best players in the league.
Well, he set a record this year.
Also underrated.
He set like some ridiculous record for like he's 9 straight multi-point games, that's the most multi-point games against one opponent in the entire like for one player. Like that's like Gretzky level kind of
stuff. That would never have happened because we would never have played Ottawa that many times.
But I think no, that wasn't Ottawa, but it was someone else. He set like a ridiculous record for a number of total points against Ottawa. But it was like team, but it was it might have been the Jets actually. I think when he got that last 2 points against the Jets, it's the first time that anyone's ever gotten. Anyway, that's ridiculous. The previous record was 8. So this kind of stuff. Like this is when Jordan. Now you're not in Edmonton, but sometimes you listen to people talk about the Oilers and they're so negative and they're so awful. And I get that the team's been really bad for a long time, but just sit back and enjoy this. This is incredible. Like this is not something we're going to see again. There's the people that are complaining. This is the second time they've seen it in their lives. We're all too young to really remember the Gretzky glory days, right? Like this is incredible. We have a guy that we literally can basically count on to be 2 points a game.
Oh yeah, or be down 4-1, and then just kind of have the feeling like we're probably going to come out of this.
Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. That's all. I
know that everyone's going to get hung up about the Stanley Cup part of it, and that's fair. This is what you fight for the championships. But you're right, Elliott. Sit back and enjoy it. Let me remind you, when people think back about Gretzky, obviously you have 4 Stanley Cups before the trade, right? Those are huge, incredibly exciting moments. But I also ask you, go ask some of the guys who lived at that time. Ask your aunts and your uncles and your moms and dads what their favorite or most iconic memories are. A lot of them are going to say 50 goals in 39 games. Guess
50
what?
And 39. 50 and 39.
Did that in 82.
100%.
They didn't win the Stanley Cup. Okay? The moments you get like that are once in a lifetime moments. This season, you're never going to see this kind of season this way again, because hopefully we never see it again, because you're never going to have a season this short. And he's just on a different level. When he goes off, I mean, it's the same. We've all talked about it, but you sit there, you're just elevated out of your chair the second he hits that second gear. It's like you're playing NHL and somebody's hit the speed boost for the first time in the game. But Elliott, you're 100% right. Sit back, Edmonton. Enjoy this. You may never see it again.
Just hope that we sign Tyson Barrie again, so that this kind of stuff can happen.
That ain't gonna happen. But that's a conversation for another day. We will leave it there. We're way over time. This is going to be a long episode, but that's okay. That's topic 2. Okay.
Topic 2.
Yeah, that was topic 2. Are you feeling hungry? Busy Bee Vegan is a plant-based meal prep service offering pre-made, delicious, and healthy plant-based meals to the Greater Toronto Area. Whether you're curious about plant-based vegan eating, looking to improve your overall health and wellness, or simply too busy to cook, Busy Bee is for you. Their plans are focused on eating clean without sacrificing taste and contributing to a healthy planet. They have made it super simple. Choose and order your meals from the multiple plans they offer, and they will deliver your meals in environmentally friendly, compostable containers right to your door. You can find them on Instagram at Busy Bee Vegan Meals or on Facebook at Busy Bee Vegan. Go check out a small local business in Toronto and save the hassle of COVID grocery shopping and cooking. Let the Busy Bees feed you buzz-worthy meals. Okay, topic 3, the old classic, everybody's favorite. Hats off. I'll go first. One of my favorite sporting events of the entire year, every year, is the most exciting and most exhilarating 2 minutes in sport, the Kentucky Derby. It's old-fashioned, I know. It's a little bit controversial, I know. But it's fun. I like it. It reminds me of my grandpa. And I didn't get to watch it. I listened to it this year. But it's the first time I have ever picked a winning horse. And so my hat goes off to Bob Baffert, who is now the standalone greatest trainer in the history of the Kentucky Derby. He has 7 horses that he has trained that have won the Derby. Wow. He has 2 of them that are Triple Crown winners, the only modern Triple Crown winners. 2015 American Pharoah, he trained him. 2018 Justified, he trained him. And this year, Medina Spirit, who won the Kentucky Derby this weekend, has a chance to be his own personal Bob Baffert triple crown. So if he's able to win the next two, the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes, Bob Baffert will have his own triple crown of Triple Crown winners. That would be great. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. But in the meantime, I tip my hat to the greatest trainer in Kentucky Derby history, Bob Baffert. Thanks for letting me win one. That was great.
What also, made you pick that horse?
Because you don't bet against Bob Baffert.
Okay. It wasn't the horse.
No, Bob Baffert. Also, he's got a great name.
Yeah.
Bob Baffert. All right. Braydon, who are you tipping your hat to?
All right, I'm tipping my hat to Bev Facey alumni who just got drafted in the NFL round 4, pick 126. Chuba Hubbard is a Carolina Panther. That's really exciting. Sherwood Park product. He's going to be Christian McCaffrey's backup. He's going to learn a lot, and it'll be really cool to see another Canadian in the NFL.
I mean, he'll be lucky to be his backup right away, but
he's got
a chance. He was the top rusher last year before COVID, I believe. He was the top rusher in the entire NCAA for yards, which is pretty exciting. But he did opt out this year, right? So, but that's great. An Edmonton product makes it big. I think there were more Canadians, either a tie for the most Canadians ever drafted this year, or they may have actually broke it. But I know that even the 2 or 3 guys who weren't drafted also just signed today, all of them. So there are a lot of Canadian talent going into the NFL, which is really exciting. Good choice, Braydon. Elliott, who do you got?
So as you guys mentioned off the top, I've been gone for the last 2 weeks, not here. But in the episode that I was last on, I made a bold prediction and ended up being very, very wrong. And so I want to give a shout out to one Kellen Holland for actually doing something at the deadline. I suggested and predicted that they were literally going to do nothing. And even when he made the initial deal for Dmitry Kulikov, I was ready to come on this show and say that this is a nothing deal. I have since, in the last 2 weeks, having had him on the team and watched him play and seen him play those really rugged second D minutes and play them well alongside Larson. You did do something at the deadline. I was wrong. So my hat's off to Ken Holland for basically doing the impossible and doing something for the Edmonton Oilers during the trade deadline, given all of the constraints, salary cap, bodies coming in and out, already having too many people, already having made a bunch of moves. It was really expansion draft. There were so many things that just led me to the belief that there's just like absolutely no way that he's going to do anything consequential. He managed to do something consequential. I was wrong. It happens, when we were talking about generational talents, this happens once in a generation for me. I apologize, and hats off to Ken Holland this week.
What was it? Tanty
Pulling got it wrong once.
For the first time.
Well, because he's the Hall of Famer builder. He's he's been around the block.
I got to say, I haven't got to watch as many other games in the last couple of weeks as I'd like because I'm working on a movie, and I've been working late. So I haven't had as many times to watch it. But I did watch, I think, his first game against Winnipeg the other night, and he looked horrible. And then I listened to the next game and I was like, okay, I think he's figuring it out. And I think part of it is it's a hell of a transition after having not played for a week. But now, like you said, Elliott, he definitely is that kind of grinding guy he's exactly what we needed right now, especially with Slater Cuckoo hurt. Because early on, I was really impressed with what Slater Cuckoo brought to our team, and unfortunately, he broke his collarbone. But yeah, a good move by Holland for sure, and the kind of move that isn't a big and flashy, but probably gets the job done where you need it, and hopefully gives us the depth we need going to the playoffs. That was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you, Elliott, for coming back and joining us this week. And Braydon, I don't know about all of your takes, but I think most of them this week were on point. We'll see how Elliott does when it comes to any bold predictions he's made and whether or not Darnell Nurse is a candidate for the Norris or not. But either way, thank you both for joining me. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. We hope you'll have a good rest of your week. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as always. And that's Hat Trick. Hat Trick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dyler Coltman and Braydon Dyler Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.
That was Hat Trick. Oh, fuck. I almost got it. Almost got it before you there.